China to Laos, not by air but by train. One of the more interesting lines and part of an eventual route from Europe to Singapore. From big city to big city, and lots of landscape and many more en route. Hello from Xishuangbanna. I'm in a part of China far away from the capital and closer to Southeast Asia, and Xishuangbanna itself has a railway station on the China to Laos railway with international trains going to Vientiane. So let's take a look at that very new international line. Landlocked Laos now has its most important railway line. The China to Laos Railway, or also Laos to China Railway, was built throughout the 2010s and early 2020s. From China, the line starts from Kunming south and heading south passes through some key stations along the line, including Pu'er and Xishuangbanna or Sipsong Panna. The southernmost stop is Mohan border station. From Laos, the line leaves the brand new Vientiane railway station, not to be confused however with tunneling or the newer Kamsavad stations for trains to Thailand. Heading further north, it passes through stations en route including Luang Prabang and Vang Vieng. The northernmost terminus is Boten border station. The two parts of a railway line connect via the Friendship Tunnel, almost 10 kilometers in length. Customs and immigration happen twice per journey, leaving one country and entering another. Chinese sources cite the importance of this railway line in its Belt and Road Initiative. The railway line also forms part of an eventual Europe to Singapore railway route. With zero COVID over in China, trains are moving across the border again. After resuming high speed into Hong Kong, the newest addition to China's cross-boundary network is the China-Laos Railway. Now, there are two dates to remember about the China to Laos Railway. The first one on the 3rd of December 2021 was when services began for passenger trains. However, because of zero COVID, they were pretty much terminating at the respective border stations. That's Mohan Station in China and Boten in Laos. Full international services for passengers did not start until the 13th of April 2023. So starting in mid-April 2023, it has been possible to travel the whole length from Kunming in China to Vientiane in Laos on a train. Right now you have to get off the train twice to complete the international border crossing. 2 trains a day, that's 1 train per direction, currently cross the border. As in Hong Kong, trains in Laos use the same train numbering as that used by all trains run by Chinese National Railways. Train D887 is the 0808 departure from Kunming South to Vientiane, and train D888 is the Vientiane 0808 service to Kunming South. Be aware that the two countries use 2 time zones, though just 1 hour apart. So when it's 10 o'clock in the morning in Laos, it's already 11 o'clock in China. These trains are the fastest on the line, doing only intermediate stops at Pu'er and Sipsong or Xishuangbanna in China, as well as Vang Vieng and Luang Prabang in Laos. They have to stop, however, at border stations in Mohan, China and Boten, Laos, but passengers can also join or leave the train there. When Kunming South Railway Station opened in late December 2016, rail publicity officials made note of not just how incredibly artistic the new station was, it being the high-speed gateway station to Yunnan, one of China's most ethnically diverse provinces. There was every reason to go overboard with all the art in the station. Also noted would be just how many lines would leave the station to the rest of China, but also to the rest of Southeast Asia. Of the handful of lines, the first to open would be China to Laos. The first part of a line to Yuxi already opened on the same day. When I visited in early 2018, this was the southwesternmost terminus for China's high-speed railway network, but the network has since expanded way beyond Yuxi. Going through mountainous parts of central and southern Yunnan, the line had stations at Pu'er and Sipsong, or Xishuangbanna as it is known in Chinese. Pu'er is known for being the home of Pu'er tea, and a major tea capital at that, hence the station art featuring horses carrying tea produce. It's also one of the most well-designed intermediate stations, with plenty of wide-open spaces, especially in the departures lounge. Sipsong, or Xishuangbanna, is an impressive station in one of the most culturally diverse prefectures in Yunnan, home of the Dai people, but also those closely linked to nearby Laos and Thailand. Beyond this point, the railway line continues further south until the border station of Mohan, it being single track only from Sipsong Panna until Vientiane terminus. Trains currently stop at Mohan border station for a full hour. Passengers must leave the train with all bags and complete customs and immigration heading out from China. These facilities in the international part of the station are in the southern part of Mohan Station. Note that if you are arriving on a train from anywhere in China, you must proceed first to the domestic exit, then immediately follow signs for the joint customs and immigration checkpoint to continue on to Laos. Meanwhile, if you have just arrived from Laos, go to the international exit, then the joint customs and immigration checkpoint for arrivals going into China. Passengers going from China to Laos use the international waiting hall. Those going from Laos to China instead use the international transfer hall. It's also worth mentioning the forms you'll need at the China-Laos border. No forms are needed for anyone leaving China, but non-Chinese passport holders will need to fill in an arrival card to enter China, although this is not expected for those who hold permanent residency. For Laos, cards are required with every border movement, both for arrivals and for departures. If you are not a citizen of Laos, you will need a standard visa or e-visa, but can also cross the border if you're visa exempt, for example, if you're a Swiss citizen. Beyond this point, the train heads into the China-Laos Friendship Tunnel. About 3 minutes into the ride, outside the window, you can see two massive illuminated flags of China and Laos. That point itself is the exact border, where one flag changes into the other. Once you head into Laos, you'll be out of a tunnel in about another minute, and find yourself in a lot of green as the train pulls into Boten, the border station in Laos. Adjust your watches as Laos uses a different time zone. When it's 10 o'clock in China, it's 9 o'clock in Laos. On Platform 1 at Boten Station, no escalators are needed, and you can go straight to the exits, but follow the arrows. If you've just arrived from China and are going into Laos, follow the blue arrows to the international exit. Have your passport and visa documentation, if needed or applicable, ready, along with your arrival card, since they may check as you wait in queue. Immigration comes first, customs is later. Then proceed either to Central Boten via the exit, or into the domestic entrance to continue onward to the rest of Laos. If you've arrived from the rest of Laos, follow the green arrows to the domestic exit. If you are leaving the train at Boten, keep right and use the so-called terminal exit. If you are going to cross the border into China, keep left and follow the green signs. The international entrance can be slow, since ticket, ID, security check, as well as customs and immigration all happen in the same hall, which alas isn't too big. Some have also reported delays just at the immigration queues. The waiting hall is shared for both arriving and departing passengers crossing the border, although it could also be closed and separated into domestic and international parts as needed. You can also get your Laos SIM card at the shops here at Boten Station, as carriers from most countries, especially those in the West, might charge higher rates to roam in Laos. From here, you're in Laos, where Laotian can be both heard and seen on the displays. As at Mohan border station in China, at Boten border station in Laos, you get a full hour to finish customs and immigration. Once you leave Boten, you're truly in Laos, and it's time to enjoy the views. Much of a line from Boten to Vieng runs through a lot of tunnels, but in the open, you get to see some incredible scenery. It's all very much green, and some views remind me even to those around Switzerland, noticeably near Gladus and St. Gallen in the slight northeast of the country. It can be quite hard to livestream this, however, as unlike China, tunnels in Laos don't as of yet have mobile signal reception. Hopefully, this will be added soon. There are quite a number of stations en route. most serve local passengers, whilst some are cargo only. As the line is single track in Laos, you will often zip through stations seeing many local trains, be it passenger trains, the Lansang Express operated by Laos, or even local classic trains, or freight trains. Inside Laos, international trains only call at the border station of Boten, as well as Luang Prabang, Vieng and Vientiane stations. You'll have to leave at Vientiane station on this China to Laos line and take a journey by car if you wish to connect onto the separate station in Laos for trains to Thailand. If you've plenty of time in Laos and are the more trains-oriented kind of traveller, hopping on board a classic train is not a bad idea at all, although they only run once a day in each direction of travel. But being in Laos by rail is a reward itself, and the many cities and towns around the line are certainly worth exploring, especially the more noted ones. If anything, the China to Laos Railway simply means that you get to be in a different country by rail. That takes to a very different dynamic. Except for maybe the border town of Boten, I've yet to see massive scaled development like is often the case around China. The capital Vientiane itself is the polar opposite of Beijing, and here in Luang Prabang, it's really village country life, but really in a slower way that I really have come to enjoy. Just like the town itself, Luang Prabang station is impressive. The majestic station is one of the largest stops on the line, at 3 platforms. Station designers built it after being inspired by the design of Wat Siantong, or the Temple of the Golden City, also of Luang Prabang, and it shows. It may well be one of the most artistic stations on the entire line. But if the outside of a station is already impressive, be ready to be blown away by the inside. Although it's only 30 minutes away from the town centre, it's a much faster connection by rail to the rest of the country. There's also something unique at platform level. You'll see 8 mini roofs of the platform shelters, something basically not seen at any other station. Around this part of Laos, you can often see clouds so low they virtually blot out the view of some parts of the mountains. Those low-lying clouds remind me to the part of German-speaking Switzerland, around the Alpstein or the Walensee regions, except for in Laos, the lake as you had it in Switzerland is replaced by trees, and even more trees. The journey is pleasant and fast, as at 160 km per hour, it's the fastest way to get land-based mileage in Laos. There's a mix of forests, mountains, rivers, and especially more as you go further south, flatland. Next up on an international service is Vieng, a town known for the karst topography, which to me actually brings up memories of my early 2018 journeys through Guangxi in southern China. But Vieng is unique in its landscape. Unfortunately, the town has also gained notoriety for tubing involving unruly tourists who too often end up drunk, although as of late it's claimed the problems are being dealt with. But still, if enjoyed in a considerate and respectful way, the landscape in this area is still a beauty in its own right. The part of a railway line south of Vieng is considerably more flat. As you near the nation's capital at Vientiane, you can also see a motorway running parallel to the railway line, not unlike in its more northerly neighbour China. This is the Boten to Vientiane motorway, and is now open to traffic from Vientiane to Vieng. The highly anticipated section to Luang Prabang is being built, and will mean a smoother ride by car when opened, although of course the fastest way to get there remains by train. This too is one of the larger stations on this international railway line. Most of a train is second class, with first class usually car rate. Seating is more comfortable, and there's even a big table in the middle of the carriage. Most passenger trains running on a line derive from, or in some cases are actually the original China Railway CR200 train, known to some as the Revival Green train. Only the livery and the naming of the train is different. Trains operated by China are the Green Revival or Fuxing trains, whilst those operated by Laos are known as the Lansang Express. The Chinese trains are green, and make that line throughout. The Lao trains are different, and are in liveries featuring colours of the Laotian flag, red, blue and white. Most characteristic of it all is the red pantograph. Quite a number of Chinese elements have been kept, including of course the hot water machine. Power sockets are different though, especially on the Lao-Lansang express trains, where the Lao national norm is more prevalent. Signage and messages are almost always trilingual: Chinese, Lao, and English. China Railway's Kunming Group operates the Chinese trains and the Chinese part directly. For now, it's also helping out with the Lao part, although the Lao trains and stations are operated somewhat more differently. For example, at Lao stations, monks have priority, something not seen in the Chinese stations. Also, the naming of the operator in Laos is different. It's known as LCR, or Laos China Railway. And incidentally, this is the very same wording used in immigration stamps you get at Boten border station. LCR also uses a logo which highly resembles that of Deutsche Bahn, although to Laos's credit, trains are certainly a fair bit more reliable than in the big northernly country just north of Switzerland. Vientiane terminus is the end of the line for passengers, although freight continues further south to Vientiane South for access to Thailand. The station is one of the 3 passenger stations in town, with tunneling the other one to Thailand, soon to be replaced by another railway station. So this one with the railway line to China is identified as the Laos China Railway Station. This station itself is around 30 minutes from central Vientiane, not too far from the Mekong River, which actually forms the border with Thailand. Like China, Laos is a communist country, but the design of a main station in the capital of Laos certainly is different from that of the Chinese capital, Beijing. Passengers taking trains leaving from Vientiane Station are in luck, as you might just be able to take a look at a mini exhibition of all other stations on this railway line, which inside the Lao People's Democratic Republic, as it's officially known, is more often referred to as the Laos to China Railway. If you are taking a domestic train, you're likely to stop at more stations than those on international trains. At major stations in Laos, including Luang, Prabang and Vientiane, there is a part of a station intended for international passengers going to China. You don't have to use this part of a station to go to Kunming, China, or to other stations on the line in the People's Republic of China. However, there is helpful publicity guiding you how to fill in your Lao departure card, the Chinese arrivals card, and, as is still required now, how to complete your health declaration as you arrive in China. Vientiane Station is big, not surprising as it's the nation's capital. To the right of the entrance is the ticket office. There is also a separate part of the station with some shops and catering opened to the general public, although for access to other ones, including the cafes, you'll need a ticket and pass through security. If you're going to ride, you'll need a ticket, and your passport as well. Ticketing can be done at ticket counters or online. However, the online booking system only works in one direction. For trains going from China to Laos, you must book using the China Railways 12306 app, which anyone can register with a valid email address. It's highly advised to use official railway ticketing apps here. Online booking is also available for services within Laos and from Laos to China, although here you must use a separate LCR ticket app and can only get an account with a Laos SIM card for now. Tickets sold in China are payable in Chinese renminbi yuan, and those sold in Laos payable in Laotian kip. It's not possible, especially online, to get a Laos to China ticket and attempt to pay this in yuan, or vice versa. The old system previously used elsewhere in China, where children were charged based on their actual height, still applies here, and tickets should still be picked up, as in being printed out, especially when travelling internationally. In both China and Laos, you can book online, but must pick up your ticket at designated stations before travel. These are railway stations with China to Laos international passenger service. For China, these are Kunming South, Pu'er, Sipsong, Panna and Mohan stations. For Laos, they are Vientiane, Vang, Vieng, Luang, Prabang and Boten stations. Additionally, for China, you can also pick up your tickets at the main Kunming station. Follow signs for the designated ticket counters and dedicated departure gates. Now, once upon a time, if you wanted to travel by rail in China, you would obviously need to print your ticket before you went to the gates. These days, though, everything's done by e-ticketing, including high-speed to Hong Kong West Kowloon. On the China to Laos Railway, however, They're still doing it old school with printed tickets, and they indeed are one of a kind. Tickets are printed on blue stock paper, with most information shown in Chinese and Lao, and at times even in English. However, you can easily tell which country issued the ticket. If you see the Laos to China Railway or LCR logo in the background, your ticket was issued in Laos, along with basic conditions of travel and Laotian. Otherwise, it was issued in China. The personal ticketing rules apply in Laos as much as they do in China. Only passports are accepted as valid ID for international travel. If you cannot book online, try going to the ticket counters 2 to 3 days ahead of travel, so to avoid disappointment. Expect to pay in kip only, and at that, cash only. Interestingly enough, tickets from Laos to China are stamped by Lao immigration on the tickets themselves, which obviously make for a great souvenir. The Laos to China Railway, or China to Laos Railway, is Laos's first railway line of national significance, as before this line opened, the only rail link left Laos bound for Thailand. It, however, puts Laos, certainly for now, as more a Liechtenstein in terms of rail operations and ownership. The double landlocked European microstate has its highway network using largely Swiss norms, and it also uses Swiss currency. But its rail network is run by the Austrians. In a probably not too different arrangement, Laos has its railways built and operated by both the Thai and the Chinese, certainly as things stand right now. Still, this crucial rail link is key for the country, as it connects landlocked Laos to major markets both up north and in the rest of Southeast Asia. It also provides for a greener mode of transport for part of a country. And, certainly in a post-COVID era, it's great news for tourists, who will most likely be impressed by one of the less visited countries of Southeast Asia. It's still early days for this line, with international passenger services still in its infancy, not even reality for 6 months. The line, however, potentially holds promise, and especially a green promise for Laos, such a country covered in green.